Welcome everyone to our Monday night shiur. Tonight is Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan. As we know, the famous tzaddik, the Shlach HaKadosh, he was a big Mikubal, Chassid, the tzaddik, Chacham, Navon, Yashab. He moved all the way from Poland to Eretz Israel, from Poland. Back then, to move from Poland to Eretz Israel was not going on El Al and making a 12-hour trip. Back then, moving meant moving olam umlo'ot. Mamash. And he's buried today in Tveria, Tiberias, right next to the Rambam. Rabbeinu Moshe ben Maimon, right next to Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, the leader of Klal Yisrael. And he has a famous book called the Shlach. The Shlach stands for Shnei Luchot Habrit. The two tablets. The two tablets. Inside this book, he reveals all the secrets of the Torah. How to learn Torah, the secrets of the Aleph Bet, Sfirot, Olamot, Torah Tod. They're big books too. Shlach HaKadosh. We're talking about the Shlach, yes. And he writes, every month has a special power. There's no coincidence. The 12 Zodiac signs have 12 powers to them. When a neshama is brought down to this world, a soul, what happens is, depending from what world you are, Atzilut, Bria, Atzilut is the godly world. There's nothing there but God. Bria is the world of the Kiseh HaKavod. That's the Nishamot, our Nishamot. Yitzirah is the world of the Malachim, the angels. Asiyah is the world of men, the physical world. The Shlach HaKadosh explains in the name of the Ari HaKadosh, the world of Asiyah, the world of men, Rubora, is mostly Klippa. Everything is Klippa. Everything is how you judge it on the outside. This world, Asiyah. Above that is the world of Yitzirah, the world of Malachim. Half and half. Chetzi Ra, Chetzi Tov. The Shlach explains in the name of the Ari, the world of Yitzirah is where Adam HaRishon ate from the Etz Hada'at Tov Vera. The Etz Hada'at was half good, half bad. That was the world of Yitzirah. That means before Adam ate from the Etz Hada'at, his status was the world of Yitzirah. He was not in the world of Asiyah. He was not here. He was in the world of Yitzirah. Above that is the world of Bria. The world of our souls. The soul world. That world is Rubotov. 90% good, 10% Klippa. And the world of Atzilut, Kulotov. Everything over there is good. A human being, when he's born inside this world, he has inside of him all four of those worlds. They're called Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya Yechida. The fifth world, that's the one I didn't explain yet, nobody has ever gotten it. No one has ever reached that level. Even Moshe Rabbeinu never reached that level. No one has ever reached that level. That's the world of Yechida, the singularity. Shh. When a soul is born to this world, you could either come, your soul, your root, the root of your neshama could either come from Asiyah, Yitzirah, Beria, or Atzilut. If you come mostly from the world of Asiyah, when your soul descends into this world, what will it be mostly drawn to? The physical pleasures. It will be drawn to the Klippa. All of the person's life, he will always be drawn to physical pleasure. If your neshama comes from the world of Yetzirah, your root, you will always be half and half, Benoni. If your neshama comes from Bria, which is mostly good, Avraham, what does that mean? It's almost impossible for you to do an Avera in this world. So us being from Bria, that's for sure out of the question. We're either from Yetzirah or Asiyah. But a neshama that comes from Bria, almost all of his averot is never in physical form. It's all inside the head. If he does an avera, it's never in the physical form. He never actually does an avera. He might think of doing an avera, but he'll never actually do it. Yetzirah and Asiyah will do it.
Do we have these souls now?
Of course. Mashiach Tzidkeinu, for example, those 45 Jews who passed away in Meron, those 45 Korbanot of Hashem, my guess is those Nishamot were from the world of Atzilut. I think so. Why? Because the Ari HaKadosh explains there are certain Nishamot, certain kids, that come from the world of Atzilut, but specifically from the root soul of Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu. How do you know? He gives a hint, a sign. How do you know who's from Nadav and Avihu, Abraham? What do you think is the sign of Nadav and Avihu? The sons of Aaron that went, they died on Kiddush Hashem. Many Jews died on Kiddush Hashem. Right? They went inside the Kodesh HaKodashim, they wanted to at least, and the fire came out and burned them. Inside, the fire went in and burned them from the inside. But what's the revealing factor is the next pasuk. Va'al pnei kol ha'am ekabed. Vayidom Aharon. The whole nation has to mourn. The Ari says when you see somebody that dies in irregular way, and for some reason the whole nation mourns them, it's a sign that their nishamot, it's a siman, could be from Nadav and Avihu. And what's interesting, those 45 tzaddikim who passed away in Meron, some of them were below the age of 15 years old. I think the youngest over there was 12. Not one drop of blood. The youngest was 9, I'm sorry. Not one drop of blood. Not one drop of blood. Exactly like Nadav and Avihu. Exactly like Nadav. Not one drop of blood was spilled. It was crazy. Usually, the organization called Zaka, they come, they have to gather all the blood, all the bone with the Jewish body. There's actually a question in halakha. There's a woman who dies in childbirth. Do you have to take out the child or you leave the child inside? It's a question in halakha. Also a question in halakha, yes, in Halchot Avelut. When a person dies, when he's killed by a goy, usually we clean the body and we dress them in shrouds, correct? Back in the day, they used to dress a person in what kind of shrouds? A rich guy used to wear nice. Yeah. A poor guy used to wear Chachamim made a takana. Everybody the same. White. White linens. So the question is in halakha, and it's a very important, we bury the person with his tzitzit. With a talit gadol. There's a question in halakha, do we make the tzitzit pasul? Or do we not make them pasul? Right now the minhag is to take him to the grave with the tzitzit. When we put him in, we take off the tzitzit. That's the minhag today. But some places had the minhag to actually bury them with tzitzit. So they should wake up from the Techet HaMetim already with a mitzvah on them. Ad kedei kach. But the question is in halakha, let's say a person is killed by a goy. Lo aleinu. Let's say a goy comes and he kills him al Kiddush Hashem. He kills him. Do we bury that person with his shrouds? With shrouds? Or do we bury him with his clothes, all bloody? The halakha is paskin in the Bet Yosef, in Hilchot Avelut, you have to bury him with his bloody clothes. You have to bury him with the clothes that are soiled in blood, because that's his nefesh. You gotta bury him with that nefesh. One reason. Second reason, so Hashem should avenge his death.
So they would wash him and then put the clothes in.
They would bury him like that.
Not even wash him?
Not even wash him.
Oh, wow.
So Hashem should take avenge. He should go up there like that, and he should ask for nikama from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ad kadei kach. Ad kadei kach. So, back to what we were saying, when a neshama comes down to this world, so when a person comes, so there are signs. So those 45 people who passed away could be from Nadav and Avihu. You never know. It's very possible. That's why the whole nation had to mourn them like that. The whole world talked about it. Even Joe Biden, I guess he took his medication that day, he was able to send nichumim to the families in Eretz Yisrael. They sent nichumim. It said over there. Vayidom Aharon. What's Vayidom Aharon means? When a person passes away, and boom, we don't know the reason for it. How could such a thing happen? Person dies, he was drunk driving. Okay, listen, you don't get into a car and drive 90 miles per hour after a wedding. You don't do that. Okay? But these people, they were tzaddikim, they went to a hilula, we have a halacha, shluchei mitzvah, einam nizokim. Person who does a mitzvah, he doesn't get a nizok, he doesn't get hurt. Right? How does such a thing happen? What's the only answer? Vayidom Aharon. The Bukhari, they also have this word, dam shin, they say. Dam, dom. Vayidom Aharon. You have to be quiet sometimes in your life. Sometimes in life you don't know the reason. You don't know. What can you do? You're not a Kadosh Baruch Hu. You're not the infinite being. You're not the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. However, there are some neshamot, all neshamot, all of them, no matter what, when they come down to this world, as they come down, they become more dense and more dense.
In what sense?
That means, as a neshama, let's say, comes down from the world of Bria, he goes down to Yitzirah, it becomes more materialistic.
Physical, more
It
physical.
gets more physical. It goes down to Asiyah, it gets even more physical. When does the soul actually get its form? Once it passes its zodiac sign.
When it's being birthed.
When it's being born, when it's going to come out in that zodiac sign, that means if it comes down in the month of, I don't know, Taleh is going to be a month of Nisan, the Aries. When he comes down, he gets a levush. His soul gets a levush. A levush is a kind of a clothing, a kind of covering on the neshama, and that covering gives that soul its midot. What characteristic traits he has to fight with in his life. So if a person is born in the month of Nisan, Taleh, Aries, he has a very big problem with ego, fire sign. He's moody. He's always prone to anger. He always needs how you say, a good word. He always needs people to pat him on the back. Good job. He always wants to fit in. He always wants to be the best. That's the Nisan. No, Taleh. Taleh is the Aries. If a person comes down, for example, in the month of the water sign, let's say for example, Akrav, the Scorpio, November, the month of Akrav is the month of Cheshvan, Mar Cheshvan. What's Mar Cheshvan? The bitter Cheshvan. Mar is also Gematria Amalek. Mar Cheshvan, Amalek, the month of Cheshvan. If he comes down during that, what's his problem in life? Sfekot. Mar, Amalek is Gematria Sfek. He has an issue with Sfekot, doubts. Always in doubt. Also, Cheshvan, Mar also is from the word, the first rain is called Mar. The first rain of the season is called Mar. That's why we call it Mar Cheshvan, the first rain of the season of that year. So rain is the midah of ta'avot. Ta'ava, desire to receive. Food, women, chas v'shalom, drugs, chas v'shalom, what else what kind of desires there are? Nice money. How could we forget the Egel HaZahav? Money. Then we have, for example, the month of Iyar. Iyar, earth sign, earth. We did fire, we did water. How about earth? Person who's born in the month of Iyar. Iyar is the Taurus. A person who's born during that month, he only has one big test in his life, stubbornness. He could only see one way in his life, and not any other way. Any other way doesn't work out for him. Not because he doesn't want to, he just cannot. It's just not in his It's not in his nature. He has to break that. He has to open up that nature. And then we have the air signs. Sivan. Sivan, Te'umim. What's Te'umim?
Twins.
Air, twins. What do the human beings always do? Talking, back and forth. Male and female. Always talking. That's the sign that has a ba'aya with sicha betela, lashon hara. Speaking too much, using the air too much. So every human being that comes down, his neshama gets a lavush. He gets a covering. As a parent, you have to know how to pinpoint what characteristic traits your kid has an issue with. As a parent. The greatest parent knows you can never raise all your kids the same way. The first mistake is to raise your kids all the same way. Every child has to be raised differently. That means you, as the Abba, have to be a multiple personality. You have to know how to deal with all the personalities. You have to know how to deal with a kid that's angry. You have to know how to deal with a kid that's chas v'shalom, depressed, earth signs, depression. You have to know how to deal with a kid who always talks too much. A kid who has too gava. You have to know, and why? You should know one thing. Your children are basically all parts of you. Just different parts. Just different parts. So one kid took from your fire sign, one kid took from your water, one kid took from your air, one kid took from your earth. All your children are parts of you. There's no different parts. That's why we have cases like Avraham Avinu. Avraham. Echad Kerativ. I called him the one. There can only be one. Avraham Avinu. Avraham, he had a father. I wouldn't call him the nicest guy. Terach. Terach ben Nahor. Terach wanted to kill his own son. According to many midrashim, he sold out his own kid. Terach was the pope, or some say the general of Nimrod. Terach was a Rasha Merusha. He did everything he could possible that Avraham should come out tameh. How so? How so? He specifically made sure to be with his wife on the night of her menstruation. That's supposed to be a child that comes out of the miflet. I was just reading a story to the kids in my class. We were doing the book Minhat Yehuda of Rabbi Yehuda Fdaye. So I was telling them the story of Shabbatai Tzvi, Shem Rishayim Yirkav. So Shabbatai Tzvi, he had his nefesh, asiyah, ruach, yitzirah. He was about to get his bria, his neshama, and he broke. So when Rabbi Yehuda Fdaye asked him, why did you break? He said, one of the main reasons why I broke was because I was born when my mother didn't go to the mikveh. My mother didn't keep Taharat HaMishpacha. That's why I was born in such a way and I couldn't handle the Nishamat HaBriah and I broke. The Shabbatai Tzvi was such a Rasha, he used to take a piece of pig and he used to say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Matir Asurim. He who allows the prohibited items. Shabbatai Tzvi was such a Rasha. On Sukkot, he made 3 of the festivals. Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. All in one. He said, we don't need it anymore. On Tisha B'Av, he made the sons of the Taz, the Turei Zahav, and the Shulchan Aruch eat on Tisha B'Av. He convinced them while in jail. That he was the Mashiach. The Shabbatai Tzvi. He convinced most of the rabbis of Europe to follow him and he was the Mashiach. How does such a guy do such a thing? Imagine the power, the soul powers that he had, but yet he broke. Why did he break? What does it all start with? Conception. Did you keep Taharat HaMishpacha? So Avraham Avinu, think of Avraham, Avi HaUmah. Avi HaUmah.
How did he not crack?
You understand? May Avraham Avinu go up to Shamayim right now and you should say to Hashem Yitbarach, my children, the sons of Yitzchak, the sons of Yaakov, are fighting for their lives against Pir'ei Adam, Ben HaShivcha, Chas v'Shalom, Shivcha ki tirash gvirta. Right now what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, Tilin hit Yerushalayim and Ilulav Shemuel Hanavi. In Yerushalayim, Yerakodesh. I never heard such a thing in my life. To hit Yerushalayim, may Avraham Avinu go up to Shamayim right now and be Melitz Yosher and Klal Yisrael. Amen. Avraham Avinu was born from a Ben Nida. How was he able to break? First of all, it says Avraham Avinu, he respected his father Terach. How do you respect such a Rasha? Because no matter what, the answer is no matter what, says the Ari HaKadosh. If you come out of this man, that means what? You are a part of this man. That means even if a person's father is a Rasha, chayav lechabedo. You're obligated to respect him. That which means, what does that mean, respect him? You cannot argue with him. You can't sit in his chair. You can't even agree with him. The Shulchan Aruch says. You can't even agree with him. You have to say to your father, who am I to agree with you? When your father doesn't know a halacha, you can't outrightly correct him. You have to say, didn't you teach us so and so? You have to say it in a nice way. You can never get angry at your parents. Now, I'm saying all this, I feel like we're all judging each other over here. But the truth is, this is the halacha. We're not judging each other. We're just saying the halacha. So, Avraham Avinu came from Terach. That means a part of his neshama was whose neshama? Terach. That means all of us have in what? In our spiritual DNA. We have Terach. We have Lavan inside of us. We have, who else we have inside of us? No, not Paro.
Terach is not
We
so
didn't have
bad because
he did Teshuvah. Afterwards he did Teshuvah. We have Lavan, Terach. We have Nachor. We have Hev. We have all the. That's why the Jewish people are the toughest of nations. If we want, we'll be Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But if Chas Shalom we don't, that's why Hashem Yitbarach had to make our forefathers barren. Why barren? To disconnect them as much as possible from their sources, to make them new human beings. You know, Sarah was born without a uterus. For her to give birth was nothing short of not a medical miracle, a miracle. That means Hashem created inside of her a uterus after she was born.
After the fact.
I heard a crazy story with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, by the way. Not as crazy as Sarah getting a uterus, but it's a story that there was one guy.
Irish guy?
Wait, Lavan is a part of us?
His DNA, Rachel and Leah, come from Lavan. His DNA is inside Rachel and Leah. And we are their children. So there was a story with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, true story. And so there was, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, you should know one thing. You see the Chabadnikim with the beards and the wives with the shadels and all that. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. Lubavitchers, the previous Lubavitchers, they wouldn't have beards. They used to be without a beard, some with beard, some without beard. Lubavitcher Rebbe, the 7th Rebbe, he started this whole minhag that every guy who wants to get married, if you want me to do the chuppah for you, you have to grow a beard. You have to grow a beard, and you have to cover your hair, you used to tell the girl, with the sheitel, with the wig. And so one guy came into the Rebbe, and basically he said to the Rebbe, this is my wife. We came to Yechidus, they call it. Before you get married, you go to the Rebbe for a bracha, whatever. So the Kala went in after the Chatan. This is before the wedding. And she goes in for a couple of long moments. And she comes out afterwards, so the Chatan asked her, why did you go in for so long? She says, no, it doesn't matter, it's between me and the Rebbe, and the wedding went in as usual. So after a while, she got pregnant. She didn't get pregnant for a long time. And she sent to the Rebbe a kvittel, as they say. Please bless us to have children. So he sent her back, may Hashem bless you with bracha v'atzlacha, you should volunteer. You should do what I told you, basically, he said to her. So her husband asked her, what did you say? She didn't want to tell him, but she went and she started volunteering in a children's hospital. After a while, she gets pregnant. So after she gets pregnant, she tells her husband, when I went inside to the Rebbe, I told him that I don't want to get married to you. He said, why? He said, I have an anger issue. I told the Rebbe, I have an anger issue. We only met 3-4 times before the wedding, and we already tied the knot. You didn't see this in me.
Not that it's it.
Yeah. So the Rebbe said, for the anger issue, you should volunteer in a children's hospital. Take some time out of your week, go volunteer in the children's hospital. After I didn't get pregnant, when the Rebbe said I should try it again, I started to do it, and I saw that I was starting to work. When I started working with children, I started working on my anger, and I got pregnant. This couple had 8 kids afterwards. After she had her 8th kid, she's old already, her kids are married, she went to the OBG, a woman goes through a stage in her life, she stops seeing her monthly, and the doctor says to her, oh, I'm so sorry, he doesn't know her, it's a new OB. I don't know, she says, I'm so sorry for you. He says, why are you sorry for me? He says, well, looking through your body, you have a child's uterus. That means when you're born, a woman is born, her uterus starts out small, and just like the rest of your body, your organs grow with you. Her organs, her uterus, never grew with her. That means she had a baby's uterus, and it's impossible, 100% impossible for her to have a baby. But she did. So she didn't say anything to the doctor, she laughed and she left. And she told her husband afterwards the whole story, and they both had a laugh of it. How inside a woman that had a baby's uterus, that she was able to have 8 children.
It never changed.
It never changed. Inside of that, Hashem, like they say, they used to bow down in the Beit HaMikdash. Everybody came in crowded. When they used to bow, everybody had 4 amot. Like this was. That's what. At least she had a uterus, though. At least Sarah Imenu was born with nothing. And not only did she have a uterus afterwards, she was able to lahanik, to feed the baby. I was telling my wife, we had a son, 7 months ago. Women today, they feed after 4 or 5 months, they stop. Back in the day, if a woman would stop feeding after 5 months, Chas Shalom was a sakana for the baby. Yeah. They had to hire a wet nurse. If they couldn't find one, the baby would have, Chas Shalom, passed away. In the back of the Tehillim, if you ever read the Yehiratzon in the back over there, you know what one of the Yehiratzons is? Shelo yechsar leisha chalav midadeha. That a woman should never stop having, when she needs to feed, she should have always food to feed. You know what kind of miracle that is today? Next time you hold a materna in your hands, the infant, you have to say, Baruch Ata Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, she'asa lanu ledavar hazeh. It's nothing short of a medical miracle. Kids used to pass away from this. In fact, the Gemara says that one of the major things that a man had to put inside the ketuvah was to ensure that if anything happens, he would pay for the food for the baby. If she had a baby, he has to be responsible for the food. Absolutely. You know what kind of miracles we're living in today? We don't appreciate it because we're born into it. Avraham Avinu, think about it. He was born as a Ben Nida, son of the biggest Rishaim. How was he able to overcome all of this? How was he able to overcome all of this? He was mitdabek. He stuck to his midah. What was his midah? Chesed. Why chesed? You know why chesed? In Kabbalah, we say there are 4 elements, right? Fire, water, air, and earth. The 4 Zodiac signs. The 4 elements. There's 12 Zodiac signs.
3 course.
There's 3 for every element, right? Yeah. In the Sfirot, we also have 4 Sfirot that are the 4. They're the root of all the 4 elements. They're the roots of all 4 elements. So Chesed is water. Chesed is water. Avraham Avinu was born in the month of Nisan. What's Nisan? Fire. So what did he do to have children and to come close to Hashem? He did the complete opposite. He broke his ta'avot. What was Yitzchak? He was Gvura. He was fire. So what did he do? He was digging wells. That's a secret. What do you mean he's digging wells? The Torah has to go out and spend one whole page of the Torah telling us how our forefather was digging wells. Seriously? There's nothing better for you to say? Tell us about Moshe Rabbeinu, his conversations, how he went up to Shamayim, how he talked to the Malachim. The only thing you could tell me right now is how Yitzchak Avinu was digging wells? What do you find in a well? Water. Yitzchak was fire. So he did the complete opposite of a sign. He went to the water. He went to the chesed. What was Yaakov? Yaakov was Tiferet. What's Tiferet? The air sign. Sivan. Now Sivan, the Gemini, he has in him both fire and water. He's what? The balancer. What is Yaakov Avinu's job? To balance all the signs. How many kids he has? 12 signs. Why? Each one for one of the zodiac signs. Why? Each son has to overcome one of the elements. And only when you're able to overcome your element, and then you could become a vessel to get the Torah. Then you could be the vessel. That's why Yaakov is Bechir Sheba Avot. Avraham Avinu, he argued with Hashem. What did he say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Hashem said, go bring me your son as a sacrifice. He said, which son?
The one you love.
He said, the one you love. He said, I love both of them. But he was serious. I love both of them. So he said, take the single son. He said, they're both single. One has this mother, one comes from this mother. He says, no, take Yitzhak. Specifically Yitzhak, take Yitzhak. Look at the Am Yisrael. When we fast Yom Kippur, right? 25 hours we fast. How do you feel after Yom Kippur, guys? How do you feel?
Accomplished.
Accomplished. You feel good. Are you in the mood to fight afterwards?
Yeah.
Yes?
Somebody makes me.
You're breaking my point over here.
No, what fight?
Who's in the mood to fight? You just fasted for 25 hours. You feel like a malach.
Just want to eat.
And even if you feel to fast, what's the mitzvah? To start building the sukkah right after the fast. Look at these goyim, our cousins, quote unquote. May nobody ever have cousins like this. These guys finish fasting for 40 days. After every fast, jang, tofalang, breaking heads, throwing rocks. No, khalas, live your life. Live it. Enjoy your life. After you fasting for 40 days, you have to feel like a malach. Instead of them becoming malachim, what are they becoming? Pere Adam, chamorim, besar chamorim besaram. Why? Yishmael is the son of the Shivcha. Shivcha never changes. Yitzchak is the son of the Gvira. He's the son of Sarah. His whole point in Yitzchak's life was to change his element. Was to change his midot. Was to change his caste. That's why he loved Esav so much. You know why he loved Esav? What does Esav represent? Which element? Also Gvura. So Yitzchak said, I see myself in him. If I could break my element, he could also break his element. And he could be the greatest. Yaakov doesn't need to break his element so much. Why? He's the middle. He's in the middle column. He's the balancer. So what does Yitzchak tell Esav to do to break his element? What does he tell him to do? What mitzvah? He tells him to bring him food, right? What is to bring somebody food? What kind of mitzvah is it? It's chesed. He tells him, take your gvura, turn it into what? Turn it into chesed. And then come bring me the food, then I'll bless you. What does Esav do? Every time he goes to bring the food, comes which malach? Comes which malach? Gabriel. Gabriel is the malach of which element? Gvura, fire. He tells Yitzchak, to get to do mitzvah of chesed, you're very far from that. First, you have to work on your gvura. First, learn how to take your fire. You know, we had a great rabbi. His name was the Rambam. The Rambam. He wrote a very controversial book called Guide to the Perplexed. Moreh Nevuchim, huh? Moreh Nevuchim, Guide to the Perplexed. In this book, many rabbis, they went against him, and we don't learn this book. He had a very controversial saying inside this book, and I could only say this because all the Chachamim know it already. The Rambam was very big into philosophy. He didn't know Kabbalah. He didn't know the secrets of the Torah. Rambam had a shita that kamiot, kamiyas, shedim, demons, supernatural powers, all this stuff is women's talk. It's all nonsense. This was his philosophy. All this stuff is nonsense. All women's talk. It's how you say, it's how you call those people? They're superstitious. These are superstitious people. In the Moreh Nevuchim, for example, how does he explain all the stories of Abraham Avinu seeing the angel, Yaakov fighting the angel? He says it was all a dream. It was all a Moreh Nevuah. That's what it was. That's how the Rambam explains it. So one of his most controversial sayings, the Rambam's controversial saying was, he said that Aristotle was one level away from prophecy. That's how much he held in esteem Aristotle. Now, who am I to say this about the Rambam? I won't even reach the
Toenail.
Yeah, forget about the tone. I would love to be the toenail of the Rambam, but that was his aim. It was a very controversial time. No matter what can you say? That was the time. So but obviously he kills Aristotle in the book. He says Aristotle may have been one level away from prophecy, but he was an atheist. Okay? Because philosophers, they only believe in what they understand.
Yeah.
If you don't understand it, then they don't believe in it. So we don't learn Guide to the Perplexed, but I can tell you from what I know from the Guide to the Perplexed. You guys aren't perplexed, so you don't have to read it. Why do you need the Guide to the Perplexed? You're not perplexed. So inside the Guide to the Perplexed, he says something interesting, and he also repeats this in his book, Mishneh Torah. Mishneh Torah, which is the halachic authority. He writes over there, the Rambam, he says in all the midot achamim, all the attributes, you always have to take the golden path.
Center.
The center. You always have to go to the center. Let's say a person is cheap. Very bad midah. How you say it in Bukhari? No, no, that's the slang way of saying it. Huh? Kachok. Okay, yeah. Whatever you guys say. The first thing is crack your board. All right, he's a kamtan. All right. Person who has, he's a miser. Person who's a kamtan is a midah of the earth. He's the earth sign. He has earth in him, a lot of earth. Cheapness comes from the earth element. Also laziness. Earth gives, but it also takes a lot. Right? He just wants to take. When a person is born, at the end, where does he go? Earth. Wherever you come, that's where he might give you a lot, but everything you eat and everything goes back to where it came from. That's the earth. He's cheap. The earth is cheap. Okay? So a kamtan, but there's also kamtan for the good. There's also kamtanut for the good, right? A person could be cheap in a good way too, right? Every single month you have to go on a vacation? No. Once a month you go on once a year you go on a vacation. You don't have to, you spend money. Okay, you're not gonna get a $10,000 watch. You're gonna get a $1,000 watch. There's a middle path. You don't have to overspend, and you don't have to be a kamtzan. You have to be in the middle. There's also a bad midah called kapdanut. It comes from the fire element. Kapdanut is being too strict, too particular, right? Everything bothers you. His tie is not on the right way, it bothers you. He didn't put his button on the top, it bothers you. His shirt is tucked out, it bothers you. Your kid didn't do the homework tonight, bothers you. He didn't go to sleep the right time, everything bothers you. You're a kapdan. There is kapdanut for good. There is kapdanut for bad. You have to take the middle column. Now let's take ga'ava. There is good ga'ava and there is bad ga'ava. What do you guys say?
Yes.
Rambam says no.
Oh, come on, bad.
The only thing he says there is no middle path, there's no golden path, is ego.
Ego.
The only thing. Because when it comes to ego, you have to be extreme. You have to break the ego from your neshama. You have to let go of the ego. You have to let go of that fire inside of you. You have to take the complete opposite. And the same thing with humbleness. When you're humble, you have to be completely humble. V'ha'ish Moshe, anav me'od. He's very humble. From every human being that ever lived and that ever will live. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. Where does anava come from? Which element does anava come from?
Water. No.
Anava comes from the fifth element. The yichida. What does the word yichida mean? Singularity. When a person sees everyone as one single unit, how can I be angry at someone else? How can I be egotistical on someone else? You know, like a person comes to shul, not our shul, Baruch Hashem, our shul is only tzadikim, geonim, gedolei olam.
Except there is one
Yeah. So, me. So when a person comes to shul and he sits down, what is the 4 words that he says? This is my chair. That's it. Kava makom. If chas v'shalom, somebody comes the next day and takes his chair, oh my God. You guys haven't seen it. I've seen these kind of fights. I've seen it. On what? A chair. So choose another chair. That's why if you ever pay attention, when I come to shul, I never sit in one seat. I always sit every single way. It's to train yourself. Never get too attached to one place. Now obviously, the Gemara says, Kol hakovea makom betfilato Elokei Avraham be'ezro. Whoever has a specific place to pray, the God of Abraham is helping him. That doesn't mean a specific seat and place and degree. It means a specific shul. It means a specific congregation. If you have a specific congregation that you always pray in, and you always pray over there, the God of Abraham is helping you. My point in all of this, guys, is that we all have elements that we have to overcome. And we all have to strive to be in the golden path. And every one of our children, the month of Sivan, the Shla says, it's specifically powerful to pray for children. To pray to have good children. We're going to finish our shiur We're going to open up the Heichal. We're all going to say Tfilat Hashla HaKadosh. Shnei Luchot HaBrit. Tfilat Ha'avot Al Abanim. We're going to say this tefillah over here. I say this every single year, and I'm sure all of you do too. I have no chashash. It's a couple of pages. 1, 2, 3, 5 pages, but small pages, big letters. We're all going to say this tefillah. But the Shla says we don't just pray to have good children. We also have to work on our children. And I want to tell you and talking about all these elements, I might give you that idea that it's very hard to break those elements, but it's not very hard to break them. Everyone could break them if he knows what to break. If a person has a problem with ego, but all of his life he's working on his ta'avot, he's working on the wrong thing. A person has to have a cheshbon nefesh. You want to take your first step into being a gadol, of fixing your tikkun in your life? The only way to do it is to have a notebook. A notebook. A cheshbon nefesh. Calculation of the soul. Every day before you go to sleep, or once a day, even once a week before Shabbat, you open up this notebook and you say, on Sunday I did this, and this. On Monday I did this and this. And then you look at it at the end of the week and you say, what midah what midah is the most occurring midah? Some person thinks, they go to shiurim, a lot of people talk about shemirat habrit, which is obviously a very important thing. But maybe your shemirat habrit is coming because of a midah that you have, that's really the source of all your problems. You understand? Person might have a problem in ego. You have to pinpoint that. But he thinks his problem is anger. But your anger is coming because of your ego. A person might have a problem in ta'avot. But he thinks his problem is in kamtzanut. But it's not really kamtzan. It's because he's a bal ta'avah. That's why he's a kamtzan. You understand? So when a person knows how to pin now, as a parent, we cannot, unfortunately, you talk to the old timers, they say, there's only one thing that could fix a child. The back of the whip. You gotta take the Shtra back in Russia. How do you guys say? In Russia, they used to have the t-shirt with the thing. Okay, halavai we should have that, but we don't. What do we do? Derech hamelech nelech. What way we have to go? There's only one way. I'm gonna teach you guys a secret right now from the Torah, from this week's parasha. This secret, whoever wants to have good children, besides for davening, which is 80%. This is 80% over here. Besides for davening and giving discipline, there's one thing. I'm going to give you a tip right now when you have children. And if you do this thing with your children every day or at least once a week, this is the tip of making your children good children. This is the tip. I'm going to read you a pasuk now. It might blow your mind, it might not. But you're going to hear it anyways. You might as well enjoy it. This parasha talks about all the numbers, right?
Yeah.
So you look at all the numbers. Who's the biggest shevet? The biggest tribe, obviously. Shevet Yehuda. You're saying we're not from Yehuda. You're looking at me with a kind of like a thing right here. Now Binyamin is pretty big, but Yehuda is like 75,000 over here. They're huge. These are just the men, huh? If you look at the Leviim, how many are they? 22,000. Pretty small.
They didn't struggle in Egypt.
And if you count, and that's 22,000 from when? A month old. For the Leviim, they counted them from a month old. Everyone else, they counted them from when? 20 to 60. For the Leviim, they counted from a month old.
So it's probably half of that.
By the way, Leviim go to pensia at what age? 50 years old. The early pension. So 2 reasons why the Leviim were so small numbers. How many Leviim for the age of 20 and on? 8,000. Very small number of Leviim. So why the Leviim are so little, by the way? Now, one reason is because everyone wanted to carry the Aron HaKodesh. And if they weren't worthy, chas v'shalom, they wouldn't last a week. Another reason was they didn't have the bracha of Pru. Because they weren't in this struggle in Egypt, they also weren't blessed with high numbers. Okay, two reasons.
It wasn't cursed because of the
What?
Levi and Shimon.
No, that's not what it says. That's not what the Mefarshim bring down. Maybe there is an answer like that, I don't know. But what's interesting, before they count the Leviim, first it says the sons of Moshe and Aharon. Now listen to this carefully. Ve'ele toledot. Who's older, Aaron or Moshe? Aaron is 83 when they leave Egypt. Moshe is 80. Aaron was 3 years older than Moshe. Ele toledot Aaron and Moshe. These are the generations of Aaron and Moshe. Now, you would think that the continuation of the pasuk, they're going to say the sons of Aaron and the sons of Moshe. Ele shemot bnei Aaron. These are the sons of Aaron. HaBechor, Nadav and Avihu. The eldest are Nadav and Avihu. Then comes Elazar and Itamar. It doesn't mention Moshe's kids. Wait a second. You just said to me, these are the descendants of Moshe and Aaron on the day that God spoke to Moses. Okay. What happened to Moses' kids? He doesn't have kids? Gershom, Eliezer. What happened to them? How come you only mention Aaron's kids? Look what Rashi says. And this is the secret. If you want to have good children, if you really want to machziram lemotav, this is the secret. Rashi asks, how come it doesn't say ve'eno maskir ela bnei Aaron? The pasuk doesn't mention Moshe's kids at all. Ela bnei Aaron. They only mention Aaron's kids. Ki nikreu toladot Moshe, because Aaron's kids are not his kids. They're Moshe's kids. Why? Shlefi shelamedan Torah. Because Moshe was the one who taught his nephews Torah. Melamed. It's giving us a binyan af for all of us over here. Shekol hamelamed et ben havero Torah. Whoever teaches his friend's son Torah, me'ale alav hakatuv ki'ilu yelado. The pasuk says it's not that it's his friend's son anymore. It's actually your kids. It's a giant chidush, Rabotai. And Rabbi Shimon Agassi says more. I taught you guys this long time ago. Let's see if you remember. If a person doesn't have children, but he got married, he tried, he got married. We said doesn't have children, no olam haba. Rabbi Shimon Agassi says this is where he learns it from. But if you had talmidim and you taught Torah, your Torah is what? That's your children. That far. Now imagine if you have a son and you actually sit with him and teach him Torah. You're your son's Rebbe and father. En lemala mizeh. There's nothing higher than that. That's the greatest thing. When you learn with your son Torah, you're fulfilling a mitzvah. If Moshe taught his nephews Torah, and they were considered his sons, and who were they? Nadav and Avihu, Zari, Tamar, Shkulim ke Moshe ve'Aaron. They were in the levels of Moshe and Aaron. That means they were tzaddikim. Imagine if you had your own son and you would teach him Torah. What will that make your son into? If not a big Talmud Chacham, not a big tzaddik. Shemachziro lemutar. Not only that, the halacha says if your father and you have a rebbe, the respect of your rebbe comes first. But if your father is your rebbe, then en yamala mizo. There's nothing higher than that. You know why? When you learn with somebody Torah, your souls are interconnecting and intertwining. Right now in the air, right now, if you have eyes to see it, a zivug is happening. There's a zivug. How do we know there is a zivug? I'll teach you. When we learn Torah, when a person learns Torah, this was a Gemara class or a Mishnah class, suddenly we have a question. What would happen after we have a question? We would find out, chidush would come out. You know what a chidush is? That's a baby. You know what a question is? That's the zivug. When we talk to each other, a zivug is happening and a baby is born. When you do that with your own child, you know what you're putting inside of him? Not only what you gave him during conception, you're giving him double portion. And not only will he be connected to you, he will also grow up to be a Talmid Chacham, Gadol v'Tzadik. So besides for doing the tefillah, you have to mekayem mitzvah v'shinantam levanecha. We say it in Shema every day. When the Torah says you should learn Torah, how do we know I have to learn the Torah? What pasuk says we gotta learn Torah? Where does it say that in the Torah? You gotta learn Torah. In Shema Yisrael, what does it say there? V'shinantam levanecha. Teach your kids. But it's in Vishinantam Levanecha, not in V'dibarta bam. The pasuk says Vishinantam Levanecha sheyu adivarim shenunim beficha. But in what context? Levanecha. Yes, the Gemara says Elu talmidecha, which is proving the point even stronger. Im betalmidecha kal v'chomer, an actual banecha. Because when you learn Torah with somebody, you're actually having a zivug with them. And that zivug makes your relationship even stronger. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us in Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan Hazeh to be avot, tzaddikim, to be good fathers. Whoever's not a father yet, may they be fathers. May Hashem bless us with haslacha b'chinuch Yeladim, with bracha, v'haslacha, yishov gedolot. May Hashem yitbarach bring calm to Eretz Yisrael. May Hashem amor letzarotenu dai and bring the Goel Tzedek. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen. Amen.